You could probably write a good chunk of the history of US comedy just by referring to Saturday Night Live. Over its long history, the show has been a platform for an innumerable number of up-and-coming comedians. Of course, we all remember the legendary cast from the classic era, but SNL is still the #1 place to look if you want to know who's funny right now. In its more recent years, the cult late-night TV program has made huge audiences familiar with instant classics like Will Ferrell, Andy Samberg, and of course, Fericito himself, Fred Armisen. Armisen's long SNL residency was marked by his willingness to be even zanier than the rest of the cast. Until his departure in 2013, he gave us hilarious characters like Stewart or the aforementioned Fericito. But he was even better at impersonating people like Michael Bloomberg and Michael Wolff. Thankfully, his talent and reputation in the comedy scene have made it possible for him to stay in the public eye, with cameos in hit shows like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Curb Your Enthusiasm, and Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, among others. Not to mention, of course, his own efforts behind the camera in shows like Portlandia and Los Espookies. One quick glance at Armisen's bio is enough to know that his comedic genius is virtually inexhaustible. Still, there's quite a lot of things we don't really know about the man under the impressive number of wigs. If you're also curious to learn what's going on behind those thick-rimmed glasses, keep watching to find out 5 things you probably didn't know about Fred Armisen. Oh, and while you do that, remember to like this video and to subscribe to our channel to give us your support. Also, don't forget to hit the bell icon too. You'll get a notification every time there's a new content available on our channel. We've got tons more SNL specific content coming up, and all the latest news and fun facts about your favorite films and TV shows. So you'll be glad you did the right thing. Number 5. His grandfather worked as a spy for the Nazi regime. If you're wondering why Armisen, who joined the show in 2002, is so damn good at accents, we have the answer. As it turns out, Fred is probably one of the most diverse and most well-traveled cast members in SNL history. Although he was born in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, his mother Hildegard is from Venezuela, while his father, Fred Armisen Sr., was born in Germany to a German mother and a Korean father. In fact, Armisen's paternal grandfather has an amazing biography well worth its own YouTube channel. Born in Korea, Park Young-in belonged to a family with aristocratic lineage, so you can rightly think of Fred as a blue-blooded Korean aristocrat. Fred's grandpa had to hide his identity behind a Japanese name, Ihara Masami, after the massacre of Koreans in 1923. He then became a professional dancer and moved to Germany, where he worked for the Nazi regime as a spy and a tool for the Goebbels propaganda department. Once World War II was over, he went back to Japan and founded what is now the premier Japanese dance company. After that kind of story, it's hard for Mr. Park's grandson to compete. Nevertheless, Armisen has never forgotten his multicultural roots. Hooking on his success as a comedian, he launched a comedy site with Horatio Sanz. The website, called Mas Mijo, is a platform for other Latino comedians to create and distribute their sketches and stand-up routines. It may not be as exciting as his grandfather's life, but at least he hasn't had to work for a certain propaganda department. Number 4. He is an experienced punk musician. If you've seen his SNL character Ian Rubbish, you know Fred knows his punk history. The character is obviously based on the Sex Pistols guitar player Johnny Rotten, and it turns out Armisen has quite a bit in common with him. Before he made it as a comedian, Fred wanted to achieve success as a drummer. He spent his teenage years playing in local bands with his high school friends, and he moved to Chicago in 1988 to drum it for a punk band, Trenchmouth. Fred's drumming chops enabled him to score quite a few jobs as a musician, some of which were quite different from the usual punk rock fare. In the early 1990s, he drummed for the most famous blue-colored people this side of the Smurfs, the Blue Man Group. And although it must have been weird, Fred says that it marked the first time he got a paycheck as a drummer, and the first time he worked at a clean venue. After years of playing with punk bands, we're sure dyeing his skin blue was no skin off his back. It was his passion for music that helped Armisen get a career as a comedian. After becoming disappointed in the music industry, he decided to film Fred Armisen's Guide to Music in South by Southwest. In the video, he interviewed celebrities in attendance at South by Southwest using several accents and characters. After HBO producers saw the footage, they decided to hire him. Fast forward 4 years later, and Armisen landed his breakthrough job as an SNL performer. Although his days as a professional musician are pretty much behind him, Armisen has done a few cameos here and there. Among them, he's played drums for bands like Les Savy Femmes, Matthew Stewart, and Wandering Lucy. He also went on stage at a B-52s concert to sing their hit Rock Lobster. You can also check out Fred's drumming in his stand-up special, fittingly titled Stand Up for Drummers. Number 3. Fericito earned him his job on SNL. Armisen's passion for music and comedy ran in parallel. Before SNL was even a dream job for him, he went to high school with Jim Brewer, who would also become a Saturday Night Live alum. They were both passionate about comedy. In an interview, Fred revealed that he was a devoted student of comedians like George Carlin, Steve Martin, Benny Hill, and the Mad Magazine team. Nevertheless, he had a far greater influence than any of those legends, his dad. Nah, we're just kidding. Although Armisen does mention Fred Sr. as an important influence in his comedy, his main role model as a comedian was the king of offbeat comedy himself, Andy Kaufman, memorably portrayed by Jim Carrey in the film Man on the Moon. It was probably Kaufman's influence that made him completely indifferent to bombing on stage. In the beginning of his career, Armisen actually got scolded by his manager, who told him he had no jokes and he was only doing characters. Far from being discouraged, he thought it was fantastic. That confidence worked wonders because, in his own words, he bombed his way to SNL. In the audition for the show, he decided to bet all his chips on one character, a Venezuelan comedian and club manager named Fericito. It's not surprising, considering that the character allowed him to use all his accent and drumming skills to good use. Nevertheless, he got hired and Fericito would become one of the most beloved characters in the show. Fun fact, Fericito took on a life of his own and appeared in a documentary about folk band Wilco. We're betting not even Fericito could have foreseen that.
Ay, Dios mío!
Number 2. He found his soulmate in Bill Hader. When you work on America's most popular comedy show for 11 years, you're bound to make some good friends. Armisen found a comedy soulmate in Stefan himself, Bill Hader. Their on-screen chemistry on SNL is evident, so it makes sense that they decided to quit the show in the same season. They both left when season 38 ended, along with fellow cast member Seth Meyers. The episode included a musical farewell, and Armisen got the chance to play in the band. The scene would prove prescient. Armisen would later play drums for the 8G Band, the house band for Late Night with Seth Meyers. That's far from being his only musical endeavor after that night. Bill and Fred also played together in a novelty soft rock band called Blue Jean Committee. The band was a fictional subject for an episode of Documentary Now, but the songs are genuinely amazing. Make sure to check it out, and while you're at it, remember to fill all your knowledge gaps about Hader with our video about him. Number 1. His ex-wife says he was a terrible husband. Nobody's perfect, and it seems Armisen is pretty lacking in the love department. At least that's what his ex-wife number 2 says. After a 6-year marriage to English songwriter Sally Timms, he married Elizabeth Moss of The Handmaid's Tale fame. In an interview with New York Magazine, the American actress, producer, and director said that her short-lived marriage to Armisen was traumatic, awful, and horrible. But you can't blame Armisen for lacking self-awareness. During his interview with Mark Maron, he admitted that he was a terrible husband. He confessed that he has an intimacy problem, and he becomes impossible to deal with, which forces his partners to break up with him. If that all sounds too self-deprecating, it seems all his former flames agree with him. After they broke up, artist Alice Lancaster painted a portrait of him called Fred Armisen, Portrait of a Sociopath. Sheesh! Fortunately, it looks like Fred has finally found some peace. He started dating fellow actress Natasha Lyonne in 2014, and they're still going strong. Let's hope Lyonne has figured out how to deal with Armisen. Otherwise, we have a pretty clear idea who's gonna die over and over again in the following season for Russian Doll. Well, that's our video on the man behind the hipster glasses, Fericito, aka Fred Armisen. If you feel we maybe missed anything important, let us know in the comments section below. And remember, if you enjoyed our video, make sure you click on the like and subscribe buttons to show your support. While you're at it, remember to hit the bell icon too. You'll get a notification every time there's a new content available. Thanks for watching and see you soon!